we have another match, another friendly for the U.S. before they head off to Monterrey, Mexico to play in the CONCACAF W Championship for World Cup qualifiers. We're hoping to see a little bit of rotation, perhaps, in this starting lineup. Danielle, when you looked at the first 11 that were put out by Vlatko Andonovski, you saw how the player rotation came in with Hatch getting the start, Morgan coming in at half, Sanchez coming in at half, Mewis and Korniak also being rotated in there. When you look ahead and preview Tuesday's friendly against Colombia, what player rotation do you foresee happening specifically in that starting 11?
Goodness. I think you'll see Nair in goal. I think I would like to see Sofia Huerta get the starting nod. I actually liked her better off the bench in the last match, just because she did provide more of that width. Kelly O'Hara tends to drift a little bit inside, and she plays a little bit more centrally, kind of in that half space, I guess you would call it. And I think Huerta, I mean, you've seen this in the NWSL, her service is so deadly and just on point. And so I'd like to see her. I think it's going to be interesting along the back line. I mean, I think you need to get Naomi Girma some minutes and some experience. I think it's going to be a super interesting battle for the center back position, which, by the way, except for Becky Sauerbrunn, did they all play at Stanford? Because I think they did. Right? Davidson, Alana Cook, Naomi Girma, so.
Well, Becky was at UVA. I just want to point that out. So.
Yes. I'm not, no disrespect to UVA. Loving your alma mater over there, Lori. But I don't know. I mean, I'll be interested to see over the course of the year who rises to the top, particularly between Alana Cook and Naomi Girma. I'm curious there. I thought Emily Fox had a great match. I think getting her some minutes, I think she could really be that left back, depending on, what Crystal Dunn looks like going forward, and what her return to play looks like. I think Ashley Sanchez deserves the start, but I also think too, you're going to see the three who didn't dress, at least be on the bench. So Sam Coffey, Carson Pickett, Jalen Howell maybe get some minutes in this one. I would say, I don't think you bring them, because if you don't play them now, they're not going to be on the roster for qualifying. So I think you'll see them not necessarily start, but get some minutes. I think you'll see Alex Morgan start, like you all alluded to. I think part of the reason Ashley Sanchez and Rose Lavelle had more time and space was because of Alex Morgan and her really threatening in behind in a way that Ashley Hatch didn't. And then I don't know. I think you rest Lindsey Horan. I think her knee, to me, looks, I don't know, but it just looks like she's not herself. And so really being thoughtful about her progression and her load is going to be important. And then out wide, I think you see potentially a Midge Purse. You see some variety out there, because it's just an embarrassment of riches when you look at it.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I've said before, Dee, that gone are the days where everyone's super scared of the US just stepping out onto the field, because players are playing more often, they're playing against competition. But then I also prefaced it with, but then if you're showing up with those strikers, then actually you are scared, because I'd be running around behind the goal if that was me.
Totally. And I have to say, there is some urgency for these younger players to play well, because look who's not here. The competition over the course of the next year, you get Julie Ertz back, Crystal Dunn, Tobin Heath, Kristen Fuss, Abby Dahlkemper. Tierna Davidson. You can have another starting 11
in there, right? Yeah.
So there is urgency to prove your value right now, because when the competition gets deeper and when some of these players are coming back from pregnancy or injury, it's just going to be a whole nother wave of pressure. And making this roster was a challenge in 2019 and 2020, and it's only gotten tougher now.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I'm with you. Sandra and I were very similar to when we were predicting kind of or hoping to see certain players. And I definitely like to see Naomi Girma as well. Huerta and what she can bring. Spot on about, being able to provide that width, especially on that side when right side with Sophia Smith, who we will see cut in, maybe start wide, but then have the ability to roam and pinch in. So I'll be curious about that. And then, I'll be interested to see too, because with Christy Mewis coming off the bench and playing in the 6, do they start her and then play around a little bit with what that looks like of Andy holding, but maybe Mewis dropping in a little bit and helping set play, and it's at times looks like 2 holding mids, but also having the ability to go forward, because those are the things, like, I think with this team and the talent that, and without having a Julie Ertz, who has been the out and out, like, ball winner type midfielder, then how do you adjust and get the best out of your players, but work within the principles that Blacko's looking for? But players might not be that true holding mid outside of an Andy Sullivan, right? So then you have to utilize other people's positioning to build out. So I'll be curious about that. And then Alex Morgan as well. I mean, that's who I think they'll go with. Mal Pugh and Sophia Smith, rightfully so, continue to get them minutes and start to build some of that. Again, just the consistency in that front line, but also partnerships, right? On not only vertically, but across that front line as well.
Yeah, I think there's going to be player rotation for sure, but I think it's going to be amongst the familiar faces that we saw, the 18 more or less that we kind of saw get minutes, whether it was starting or off the bench. Called 26 players in for these friendlies, but you had Pickett who didn't dress, Howell didn't dress, Coffee didn't dress. And I would imagine that's going to be the same scenario in Utah. I mean, you're going to see this coaching staff sort of utilize the 23 players who are going to be going to Monterrey. So we're probably going to see even a more narrower lens in terms of, like I said, the 11 to 18 that were sort of utilized in between the 6 subs and such. So, I'm a little curious if they're going to give Hatch another start. They're going to Utah. Sometimes we see the hometown crowd play a factor in these things. I'm not on the coaching staff, but I'm not starting Hatch if this is the final game going into qualifiers. I've really liked what Hatch has brought to this team off of the bench. Quite frankly, I think she's been able to come in and sort of show that she can shake things up and sort of be this extra targeted option. But there was a little bit, we saw this a little bit of a disconnect. The timing was a little bit off during that first 55 minutes of the game for US against Colombia. So and we naturally saw things open up a little bit different with Sanchez and Morgan coming into play. So there's going to be some type of rotation. It's just going to depend on the coaching staff and what they do. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be somewhere amongst that same 17 players more or less that we saw in that first game against Colombia. But I'm with you. I want to see Girma get minutes. If this is the player, that you're calling in for qualifiers in light of missing a Dahlkemper, missing a Tierna Davidson, she's got to see some minutes before being sort of thrown into the mix of things in the tournament, a tournament in which I'm sure this national team is going to expect to see something similar. They're going to expect to see some low blocks. They're going to expect to see some teams that want to clog up, lanes in the middle. So I would like to see Girma get some minutes as well. She's like the one player that maybe we didn't get a chance to see in that first game against Colombia. And I want to see more extended minutes from Huerta in place of O'Hara, just to see her utilize those white spaces like I mentioned earlier. So not going to be surprised if it's something along the kind of those 18 that we're seeing. It's just a matter of what Blacko's got in his pocket and how he wants to roll out with it.
I agree, Sandra. Sorry, Danielle, I don't think we're going to see Sam Coffey, Jalen Howell, or Carson Pickett get minutes. I just don't. I would
love it though.
I would love it.
I remember when they got the call up, I was like, yes, this is awesome.
I just don't think, knowing that the qualifiers are around the corner and that's what they're preparing for, right? Like, these are World Cup qualifiers, and knowing that those 3 aren't going to make it to Mexico, that they're there for the training camp and that type of purpose. We just like to go at you here, Danielle. Welcome.
Hey, we'll see. I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate it. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see who's right. come Tuesday.
We will see you.
Hopefully you just manifested it though.
I hope so.
I would love to see it.
And when we look at the 6, right, it was Andy Sullivan, and then to see Christy Mewis get that spot instead of someone like Jalen Howe, who you think would be the natural fall in for that defensive 6, or even a Sam Coffey, right? But to see Christy Mewis there was a bit surprising, but I think she did do well. And no, she wasn't tested defensively that much, but as her position and to kind of own that spot as someone who is for sure going to Monterrey, Mexico for the qualifiers, the fact that she got minutes there over the 2 other players that already play that position in the league, that was a little bit telling to me as to kind of what Vlatko is looking at and trying to find those player rotations. When Colombia looks back at their first match, no doubt are they looking at that first 45, 55 minutes to say, what do we do well? What do we need to bring to this next match against the United States in Utah? Danielle, when you look at from the United States perspective, the spaces in that first half, where they were, where they weren't, how does the United States watch that first 45 minutes and what did they take from that to grow into the second match?
I mean, I guess I think we kind of saw that in the second half, right? Like they found a way to be more creative in the midfield. And honestly, I think to me, one of the biggest differences there was they were pressing the restraining line. So there was a little more space for Rose Lavelle and Ashley Sanchez to play. But then also too, like if you watch Ashley Sanchez's movement and creativity, as compared to Lindsey Horan kept drifting out wide, right? She tends to do that. She was the one who is early on, like recreating that width. I don't want my number 10 or number 8 or whatever the heck number we're going to give her. I don't want her, my attacking center mid to be trying to play make from out there. That was one of the things that I thought was a big difference in the second half. So I'm looking for more of that. And just quite frankly, I'm looking for more sharpness, more cohesiveness, more chemistry in general. The challenge when you're looking at a tournament is you want to be playing your best football at the end of the tournament. So what is it, July 18th or whatever the heck the final is? You tack these 2 games so onto the front of it. So it's how can you progress over the course of these 7 games? How can you get the experience? Yes, if you're Vlatko Andonovski, you have to say, I'm taking this tournament seriously. It's 1 game at a time. But like, let's be honest, 4 teams qualify for sure out of CONCACAF. I mean, it would be an upset of the proportions of Miracle on Ice if the United States did not get out of their group, right? So to me, it is still about learning. It's still about like testing things out. And that's the challenge when you're a national team coach. You don't have the luxury. It's going to continue to get this way more and more on the women's side as these FIFA windows get tighter, as we see more of our U.S. players playing internationally, not getting released during these windows and such. Like, you don't have the luxury of, oh, we'll come into camp, we'll do a residency, we'll all get on the same team. Like, you have to use every single training and opportunity to be assessing your players. And so that's why I get the feeling that there is going to be a little bit more rotation and that it's going to be important for them to keep progressing, keep layering in those tactics, keep finding a way to better execute in how to break down defensive that are playing so compactly, because that's the challenge we have seen. It's not rocket science how to beat a bunker or how to break down a block. There's like a half a dozen ways that you do it, maybe 10 if you're stretching it a little bit, but it really is about executing it. And the US didn't execute it to the extent it needed to in the first half. It got a little better in the second half, but it's got to get way better over the course of this 7-game series, if you will.
Because the competition is so tight, specifically in the front line and that forward group, Lori, you mentioned you wanted to see Sophia Smith, Mallory Pugh have big games, and you also think that they're going to start again. What did those 2 in particular, Pugh and Smith, need to do to get to the next level in this next friendly?
Oh, well, I think they are at the next level. I mean, I'm not looking for them to have like these huge games. I just think it comes down to what Danielle said, which is execution. I mean, we could have seen Malpew on the board early on in the first 12 minutes, just didn't put that one away, sliced through it. We could have, there was a number of opportunities. It really is about precision. I think there's some patience that come along with that, right? And that has historically been a bit of a a topic at hand for the U.S. when teams are compact centrally, make it difficult to play through. It's not as a transitional style of play. Historically, that's been difficult for the U.S. because we want to go, right? We want to press. We want to condense the space. And that ultimately, though, when you do have the ball, limits the space that you have to be able to move it around, right? And then a Colombia team that had a game plan, put numbers in the box with 5. So to me, there's about patience. It is about execution and precision. And then some fluidity, because I do like the point that Danielle made. And I actually have Germany on my mind because I have them in the Euros and I've been watching, and they actually have center mids that float out wide as well. But when they do that, then they have positional, like different fluidity. They have an outside back that comes in, or their number 9 will drop in, right? There's a real fluidity to the way they play. So if Haran's going to do that, and that goes back to my overarching theme always about like, what are the principles at hand? Who do you have on the field? And knowing what each other's tendencies are. Because if Haran's out there, then you have to have somebody filling in the gap, right? Is that Malpew? Is that Emily Fox on that side? And so it doesn't become stagnant. And it might look a little different on the right-hand side, depending on who's playing. But all of that comes down to why I actually don't think there'll be as many changes as we think. And also, I think when you look historically back at Vlatko, when we think there's going to be changes, there actually hasn't either. And I think there's because he does want to start to build that connectivity, right? I think he does have an understanding of who he wants to start, very similar to what we saw the other night. And given that these players have a lot more minutes, that's going to continue to be a theme going forward. Now that these players are playing a lot more games, a lot more soccer in a calendar year, you're naturally going to have to adjust and swap players out. But I think that there's going to be somewhat of a consistent lineup to start to build that, because to Danielle's point, and something that we've been saying on the show all along, gone are the days where you have 3 months to prepare, especially the U.S. Players are going to be coming in for these FIFA dates. The same thing that we see on the men's side with their young team. How do you get everybody on the same page, operating and being efficient? And the final third is always that last piece, right? So, and especially with a team like the U.S. who want to attack and are passionate about it too. Sometimes it'll be like, slow down a little bit, get some other players involved, look for the combinations, right?
So, Lori, what are your predictions then when you look at this game, whether it's in terms of goal scorers, penalty kicks? You think they're going to get another penalty kick call? Will they put it away? I mean, do you think the U.S. is going to win? And then if so, like, who are going to be the top 2 players that are true game changers in this match?
Well, yeah, I do think the U.S. can. I think that is the heart and soul of this team, is showing up and saying we are going to win every game. That is the expectation. That is what the players know about, and it's also about evolving, right? Because this new generation and having the balance with some of the veteran players is what it's all about. But listen, I think 2 of the most exciting players in the NWSL on this team, Malpew and Sophia Smith. I'll look for them to continue to be kind of those go-to players. I think they welcome that in some of the interviews that we've heard too, which is awesome. You'd love that. And then, but like, honestly, I don't know if I could just pick out a couple players. I think this is more so going into this, and to our entire point as well, is that, listen, this is a deep roster. Yeah. Danielle mentioned all the other players. There's potential that, the men just got announced for 26 for this World Cup. That could be the potential for next year as well. So on the women's side, so there's a lot of factors. So to me, it's about, more, not so much about individual performance. It's just about more of the team, because if you're getting on the same page, these players, their individual brilliance is going to start to shine. It's going to come out in the system. So to me, it's just about setting everybody up, getting everybody and getting the right mix. Quite frankly, I think that is interesting. Sometimes we want to go with the same group, but I think, it's not always about just going with the best 11. It's like who's operating, who gets it, who can connect the dots, really. So at least that's how I see it. Right. So.
Yeah. You mentioned that Men's World Cup and getting to 26. It's a whole can of worms. We can't get there yet, Lori, because Dunn could be back next year from her pregnancy. She's already working
She's
in training. Literally already back. It's so impressive to see. So we can't even begin to open that can of worms. But Sandra, when you look ahead to Tuesday's match for the U.S., are you still looking for your center backs to come and shine through, or what specifically are you looking to see any changes from the U.S. side?
Yeah, I want to see it at the outside back position. I think we're gonna see it. We talked about Kelly O'Hara getting that first start and then coming out in the second half and the team getting some different looks with Huerta in her place. And there is immediate availability happening today for the U.S. Women's National Team with Vlatko Andonovski. And apparently, breaking news, he's just alluded that Kelly O'Hara will not be starting tomorrow or available for the team, and as well as Andy Sullivan. So I think we're going to get our wish, y'all. We're going to get to see a little, maybe that means a little bit more Christy Mewis in the six. We'll see. And I think we're all pretty excited to see Sofia Huerta probably get some extended minutes as well and see what she can do. So we already sort of have a confirmation right there that we're going to see some different things and different looks in the back line there. But it makes me a little curious now if that's an automatic rotation right there. Does that mean he's going to continue some rotation across that back four? Are we going to see my assumption is that, will we ever see Sane get minutes in either of these games before the CONCACAF championship? Honestly, I'm not too sure. And quite frankly, I don't think if you've got Emily Fox putting together the minutes that she's putting up against this team and looking in form ahead of the qualifiers, I don't think you mess with that, quite frankly. I think if you continue to sort of see the progression from Sofia Huerta on the opposite side of that, you run with Fox and you run with Huerta. So I would like to see it. So I'm not too sure what that means for the center back pairing, like what we saw out of Sauerbrunn and Cook. So I'm not too sure what that would mean for somebody like Girma, but I'm hopeful that maybe she gets at least 45 in this one.
Danielle, what do you think now that we know that Kelly O'Hara is for sure out, Andy Sullivan out? That means Huerta most likely, but in that sixth role, who would you like to see?
I still think there's going to be rotation. Like, put Jalen Howell in there.
Yeah.
So you
would rather see Howell?
You guys can buy me a beer if I'm right. I'll buy you a beer if you're right. And
I'm all for it. I see both sides, really. Like, I agree. I can see the consistency, but I'm also like, get Sam Coffey in there.
Yeah.
She's been excellent. Like, she's been excellent for Portland. So I'm like, I'm all for the bold changes too. So
I mean, and to be honest, like, I guess to me, my question, and Lori, you're, all of you guys are in the NWSL, like in the weeds more than I am, just watching as a fan, but like, who gives you more on the attacking side of the ball from that number 6 role? Because, and again, no disrespect to Colombia, but you expect the United States to have more of the ball. You don't expect them to have a huge attacking presence over the course of 90 minutes. And so to me, like, I'm leaning towards the attacking side being my priority, as opposed to really evaluating my center backs or my goalkeeper during a match like this. So who do you think will give more offensively from the defensive center mid role?
I mean, I have my thoughts. Do you want to go, Sandra? Please?
No, you can go, Lord.
Okay. I mean, listen, I have said it from the beginning. I would go with Sam Coffey. I think that she offers something that we haven't seen in a bit, in terms of just this, like, she could switch to play. She had at Penn State, she was more of an advanced midfielder. So already has that attacking quality, I think, innately, but has been such an important piece to the way that Portland plays. And not an out and out, straight up ball winner, but like positionally, I think is fantastic, especially for a young player, putting herself, screening balls, cutting off passes, but then just the simplicity and her ability to keep the ball moving, connect passes. And Danielle, like you said earlier about like just the execution and precision in the final third, we didn't see Andy on the ball, and watching her enough with Washington and how important, as I mentioned earlier, she is just organizationally. I believe that Andy can do this too, but with her out, to me, Sam Coffey is the one that's going to offer that the most, in terms of like, let's connect this first pass when it turns over. That calms the team down. Then you start to see other players being like, all right, to the correct foot, into the space, to their feet, right? So that's who I would go for. And I'd also like just to see her at this level with the jump that she's made. I mean, she played every single minute for Portland so far.
Yeah.
I think it's her and actually that might be it. I think there is one other player for Portland, but let's not get into the weeds about the stats of NWSL here. But I'm a fan of hers. I think she offers something different. And it goes into the depth conversation that we've had here about that 6 going forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, with the news that it's O'Hara's out and Sullivan is out, I think that's going to maybe open up some things. So I don't think Danielle's going to have to buy anybody a beer. I think when you're taking these 2 players out, I mean, that's an opportunity, right? For someone else.
So I'm already buying Danielle a beer because
I'm sorry. I'm here to say that you're already.
Vlatko Andonovski already said one of the players not going to Mexico will start tomorrow, but he doesn't say who. So Danielle, Venmo coming your way for a beer because this is fantastic. Yeah. I'm excited to see it. I think it could be a Coffee or a Hal in that rotational 6 role. As much as I would love to see Carson Pickett, the depth at 6 isn't there, and that's where he needs to get players minutes. I am so here for this. We love being wrong. Well, I love being wrong on Attacking Third. It's so fun to come back and talk about all of this. This was fantastic. Our hour is entirely up. We have another match tomorrow for the U.S. against Colombia, a friendly that they will be playing in Utah. Before we go, final thoughts from the 3 of you. Lori, I'm going to start with you. Final thoughts on all of this, the last match, the match coming up, anything you just want to hang out with Danielle about?
Oh, yeah, indeed. Come on the show all the time, please. We love you here. And I'm happy to give my money away to very much to you 3. If we're wrong, I'll send you all the beer money. And mainly, I'm just looking forward to this team because this is one of the, obviously, we've just seen one game with a little bit of the mix of some of the veterans with the youth and how it all comes to play. And always love the tournament. So I'm excited about CONCACAF starting and the qualifiers.
Sandra, final thoughts from you?
Come on, no one's going to put a scoreline on it?
Oh, I'll do predictions. Yeah, totally.
You always leave that up to the writer? Give me a scoreline.
Goodness gracious. I'm going to go with 3-0 again.
Okay. I think that's fair. Listen, when I did my written preview of this first match, I went 4-0.
Okay. They
could have been 5-0, but the penalties just were not as crisp as they should have been. But I think maybe they look a little different and a little sharper in the second game. So I'm excited to see the rotation. I'm excited to see one of the either some type of combination of Howell and or Coffee potentially in this role tomorrow for the team. And I think that might actually give some new looks for them as well. So I think that maybe that one might lead the way for some goals, and hopefully they happen in the first half as well, not just the second half. So I don't know. I'm going to be ambitious. I'm going to say 5. I'm going to put a 5 on it.
All right. I think I'm not hating on that. I do think the score could be more lopsided. This is a team. I mean, in soccer, you don't often get the chance to play home and homes, or you don't play teams twice in a row very often. And I think this team is smart in its execution. It learns from its mistakes. It learns when it doesn't do things well. And we saw that in the second half compared to the first half. I think that momentum will continue. And I'm just eager to see better execution on the attacking side. And to me, to keep learning about how Vlatko is going to start to put his team together and what that starts to look like. I don't necessarily look at the results being so incredibly important in this one, but I'm looking for my better understanding of tactics and better understanding of who can execute what Vlatko is trying to get this team to do.
Yeah, it's all about the learning curve. Danielle, can you give us a score line?
I like 4-0. What did you say, Lori? You cut out.
I said 3-0 again.
Okay, 4. Then I'll take different.
I like that. 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I like the 5 just because I don't want to pick what someone else does. I'm going to go 7. US. I think they're just going to ball out on goals.
Okay,
I'm here for it. I'm here for sending all the beer money everyone else's way. Don't worry about it. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Danielle, Lori, Sandra, thank you for being here.